pads on the guys today just to see it in a different light?
Absolutely. I think, Sundays are played in pads, so we're excited to get out there, start banging, show the physical aspect of the team, and start to build that over here the next couple weeks.
What's the biggest thing you're looking for?
I think the intensity. Certainly when the pads come on, you start to bang. It's real football. I think the guys do a great job of competing and going out and trying to get better without pads on. But at the end of the day, I think it does add a different element when you put them on.
So much has been said about what this offense can be, and I know you guys have still a lot to show yourselves, much less anybody else. But do you share that optimism of what the ceiling can be for this?
No, I think we really got to focus on what we're trying to accomplish. And if we're going to get where we want to go, I think that always has to be the goal. And I think that has to be driven home on a daily basis. Because if you start thinking about, hey, what we could be, what we need to be, I think you're going to stop focusing on how do I get better at my job, coaches and players included. So I think that has really been the message from the moment we walked in this building, and it's going to continue to be as we approach the season.
How would you describe the difference day one with Kyler in training camp last year as opposed to this year?
The obvious difference, he knew he wasn't going on the field. So obviously, he couldn't be on the field at certain times due to rules and where he was on from a status standpoint. So I think he did an unbelievable job of trying to stay engaged, trying to get mental reps, trying to be a part of it. It takes on a whole nother meaning when you're physically doing it and you can kind of speak from experience in the meeting room, ask some different questions now that you're starting to see it firsthand. So I think that's been fun and certainly expect that to continue.
With the momentum of last year, did you feel like there was momentum coming out of those last couple games last year with the way the offense?
I certainly was happy with how we played. Could have done some things better in terms of the outcomes and finishing some of those games. But I think the hardest part is this year starts from ground zero. So I don't think we can say, hey, we ended December, January on a high note. It's going to carry over. I really don't think that's pretty realistic. I think we got to go out and prove it, go out and show it, and expect it to be right from the ground up from game one.
Now that you have your quarterback back for day one, how different is camp? And you guys have gone through it once before. How different is this year compared to?
I really don't think it's that different. I think regardless of who's in that seat and playing with the football, everybody's out here trying to compete and do their job at a really high level. I think that's the nature of the business. It's a day-to-day business, and that's the reality of the NFL. I think these guys understand that and appreciate that. So it's kind of, hey, whoever I'm out here with, I'm going to try to do my best and improve as a player because that's what's going to make the team better, and I think that's been the focus so far.
Came back in the middle of last season and having to not only get him adjusted while also having to prepare for your opponent that week. How much of the offseason early on was spent looking back at that second half and figuring out what did he like and didn't like before you moved into elevating and implementing new things?
I think it was a balance. I think, honestly, we probably started more with us by nature how the offseason's structured. You start your meetings only, then you're on air, then you're against the defense. So you kind of get to build up where you can focus on you in the offseason. Whereas, as you said, when he jumped in, whatever week it was, we didn't have time to say, hey, do we like this? It's no, we got a game in 4 days. We got to go play. We got to go execute. I think in the spring, we were able to say, all right, hey, let's focus on us. Let's focus on you. Let's focus on pushing you on some things you haven't done before. Let's make sure we hone in on what you really like, what you don't like, what we like as a unit, and what fits our talent the best. And then now let's go implement it, first against our defense and then feel how that fits week to week throughout the season.
Last year you had him change his footwork. Were there physical attributes that you guys challenged him with this offseason again?
Not a ton. I'd say a lot of it was from the get-go. So part of the rehab was he could do that stuff. He could implement some of the footwork and do a lot of that. So I wouldn't say we changed a ton of that when he got back on the field.
Fourth in rushing last year, yet how do you combat the temptation to throw more, especially with Kyler in the fold? You bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., year two of Michael Wilson, Trey McBride now, solidified. How do you balance that?
I think exactly as you said, it is a balance. I think a lot of it's going to be dictated by who we're playing and where we feel like the best matchup is. I think the number one thing in this league, and I know I've said this before, is we can't say, hey, we're going to throw the ball to win or, hey, we're going to run the ball to win. We go into the plan based on what we see on tape, what we think the matchup is, and then the flow of the game, the reality of who's playing well, where the matchup is, what the scheme lies, I think is going to dictate how we play each game. And if we can win a game doing either, then we put ourselves in position to be successful. If we have to do one or the other to win games, I think it could be hard in this league.
How do you expect to get the most you can out of Marvin?
I think the nice part about him and just kind of the person he is, the way he approaches the game, is that's not going to be super demanding on our end, if that makes sense. You don't have to push him to work, to study, to prepare. I think that's part of who he is and who he's always been. I think that was the exciting part of getting him in the building. If you watch him go through his day, pre-practice, at practice, post-practice, in the meeting room, it's like he's been here for years from a pro standpoint of how he approaches the job. So, him just continuing to improve, making sure that we're building the scheme to give him a chance to do his thing at a high level and tie that in with what everyone does around him well.
Follow-up to that would be, he's got a lot of tricks in his bag, as it were, from release moves to everything he does with his route running. Are you in favor of letting him explore all those things? Jonathan said Maybe just throw the fastball 80% of the time. Maybe don't throw all this other stuff.
I think it's a balance. I think most good players are really good at something or really good at a small handful of things, and you certainly are going to need pieces to complement that. But I think, as JG said, you don't want to forget about what made you really dynamic and what makes you really difficult to cover. So we are constantly going to work with him to find that balance. Say, hey, make sure you're using your top skills, your top releases, your top of the routes, but also understand that when people see that and you put it on tape, they're going to have an answer, and you need to make sure that you're building some type of complement to that so you don't become easy to defend.
If he's legit wide receiver one, what does that do for this offense?
I mean, anytime you get a player with talent, whether it's him or anyone at another position, you can certainly, it's going to affect how the defense wants to defend you. It's going to affect what's open, how you try to get that person the ball, and how it allows other people to get open within the offense in the run game and the pass game. So, I think we're going to continue to establish that as we get through camp.
In what ways have you seen Zay Jones's veteran experience kind of sprinkled into the wide receiver room?
Yeah, I think as you said it, I mean, this is probably year 7, year 8 for him. We have a couple guys on offense now that have been around the game for a long time and seen a lot of different things done and seen a lot of guys come in and out of the league. So I think that presence, just from a teaching, like almost like a coach standpoint, like players can lean on him and say, hey, what do you do after practice to take care of your body? How did you get to year 8? From a release standpoint, hey, this is something I'm seeing from a DB. Didn't see a lot of it in college or haven't seen a lot of it in year 2 or 3. I know you played in this division. You might have played that player. How did you get off the line? What did you do at the top of the route? And I think he's done a great job of embracing that role. I think we certainly try to foster that and giving him the opportunity to have that voice because he has been around it and he's done it at a high level for a long time.
With Kyler early in his career, he was basically the best downfield passer in the league, which has reverted a little bit the last 2 years. Beyond health, how do you unlock that again for him?
We got to get people open for him. I think that's the easy answer. But no, it's really, and I've said this before, the down the field passing game is very high variance. It's not like in this league you're going to get 20 chances a game to push the ball to open people down the field. So, if a defense is doing their job, you're hoping to generate, 3, 4, 5 a game where they're truly down the field plays. A lot of explosives come from catch and runs, broken tackles, good underneath scheme. So if you miss 1 or 2 in a game, all of a sudden your percentage drops from 80 to 20. And all of a sudden it looks like you're not doing what you need to do. So I think I still feel very confident about his ability to do that, the personnel we have to utilize that. So it's not something I'm particularly worried about.
Aspect of taking what's available in front of him if teams are taking away that downfield so that he can maybe get those, catch and run 25 yards?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things of the quarterback position, and I've said this in the room before, is when we're right and we call the perfect play, take advantage. I'm not going to every time. That's reality. And when I don't, finding the quickest completion, getting out of negative plays, creating a plus 4-yard gain when I called a minus 2-yard play is a big part of playing the quarterback position at a high level. And I think that's where you spend a lot of time coaching, recognizing, identifying, and then making sure we're making those decisions on time.
The other day, Jonathan was saying that when the team was considering signing Yelda last year, that you and Izzy and Evan Marcus had a big role in saying, hey, he just needs a chance to play. What's your thought on that, and also the personality that he brings to his room and the team?
Yeah, and I think Monty, JG, I think the entire front office, they do a great job of kind of picking our brains with guys that we've been around. I'm fortunate enough to be in this league. I think this is year 12. Been around a number of guys in different organizations. So when those guys hit free agency or they might be available for different reasons, there's always those conversations of, hey, what's he like from a character standpoint? What's he like from a physical ability standpoint? How does he fit our locker room? And I think those guys do a great job of taking that information and managing and making great decisions for the organization, which certainly makes my job easier. As it pertains to Yelda, as you said, the attitude, the effort, the intensity, we were able to see it. And he played for us in Cleveland due to a number of injuries, played guard, played center, so we saw his ability to mentally pick it up, to physically go do it. Also knowing that, I think at the time it was probably year 3 or 4 for him, he hadn't played a ton of football up to that point. And for a guy with that work ethic who takes the job so seriously, seeing a little bit of success and saying, if you know he's going to work at it and he's smart and he's on the right trajectory, you would expect that to only continue with more playing time. So that was exciting to see as we were able to bring him in the building.
I'm sure you guys had an idea of the kind of quarterback he was. I'm sure you watch video all over the place. Once you got him on the field and he was playing, were there things that you guys saw like, oh, we didn't really realize this or that, and now we can incorporate that going forward?
Yeah, I think not necessarily like didn't see, but maybe are going to emphasize more as we got going, if that makes sense. Like, hey, I thought he'd be good at that, but wow, maybe he saw it even cleaner or quicker than I realized. And I think that's shown up in a number of different areas in our passing game where it's like, I knew we were going to do that. I didn't know we were going to do that much of it because he does it at such a high level. So I think that's been the fun kind of, hey, get him on the field, get comfortable with what he likes and what he's really good at, and then watch us do more of it. I think that's been fun to do.
Is there anything specific that you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, like the under center keeper game, like you see him in the, on the move, out of the pocket. Like he certainly has done that off schedule in his career. So I figured there would be some translation to do it on schedule, part of the design. But I think his embracing of that and his ability to own that, so much goes into that, from the run fake, the action, your body language, and he does a really nice job with it. And I think it's been a good part of our offense.
Versatility has been kind of a positional buzzword around the room here. We've seen receivers over the first few days. Marvin was in the slot, Dorsch was in the backfield. What do you tangibly gain from that, and what's your philosophy overall?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and it kind of goes back to the core of who we want to be, is it makes us difficult to defend. If you put a good player in the same spot at every down in this league, defenses are going to hone it, whether they dictate the coverage or force the matchup. So having smart guys who have versatility, who can understand the big picture and move around the formation, makes it hard on a defense to say he's going to be there and this is how we stop him. Because if you plan on him being there and he's over there, you got the wrong guy on him, or you got the wrong coverage called, and now we can create some favorable matchups for us. So that's always going to be something we try to emphasize based on the skill set of the people that we have.
Versatility.
Tyler taking the group to LA. What do you hope manifests itself out of that time together, the camaraderie, the on-field work?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things, and I think you just hit on. Certainly, I think the relationship piece is big. And I say this in the room at times. When you have, on offense, 45 guys, but 90 guys in a room, the chance that everyone loves each other is low, to be perfectly honest. But I think the reality is when there's a shared goal and a mutual interest, and you care about each other, your ability to go out there and maybe push a little harder, work a little harder, demand a little bit more of each other is real. So I think that's important. I think that's a big part of this sport by nature of how the game is played. And then I think the other thing is just actually playing the sport and having a feel for how guys move, especially at the quarterback position. We talk about, 3 guys run the same route. They're not all going to run it the same way. And especially for the starter, those reps of understanding who you're throwing to, how they come out of the break, where they like the football, those are important things to know where to place the ball, when he's coming out, how to be successful as an offense. And certainly the more reps you can bank on that, the better off we're going to be.
Was it even more important for him to do it this offseason, considering he didn't have that chance last one?
Yes and no. I think, obviously depending on schedule and what they got going on, it's something, if they have time to do, it's great. But again, there's a lot going on in people's lives, so I get it. I think those guys have done a really nice job of finding time when it fits to build the camaraderie and to build that relationship on the field.
From the on-field rapport as far as Kyler and Marvin so far?
I think just kind of hit on. I think they do have a very strong comfort level with what the other one is thinking, how the other one's going to move in terms of Marv running the route, where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there, Kyler putting the ball kind of where he can go get it based on who he is. So it's been fun to watch, and certainly we got a long way to go till we really get where we want to be full time, but I think we've made some good progress here early.
Talking about the benefit of versatility with the receivers, we've seen you guys in a lot of 2 tight end sets so far. Is that a similar idea with the versatility of having multiple tight ends on the field?
Absolutely, and if you look at the tight ends that we have, they all kind of have a different skill set. So it allows us to move them around the formation in different ways. What we might ask Trey to do as opposed to Tip, as opposed to Elijah, like it might not all be the same thing. And so again, as a defense, like we put 12 on the field, are you going to stay base? Are you going to be a nickel? Are you going to put 5 down on the field? And the more that you have to worry about that, you now have to defend multiple offenses with those people on the field, rather than like, hey, when we're in 12, we're in 2 tight end sets, and here's what you defend. So I think that's certainly, we feel like, gives us an advantage on offense and want to continue to emphasize.
What specifically do you think Tip can impact what you do out of 12?
I think that, we're going to figure that out here as we start to put the pads on in terms of what his skill set is, where he kind of shines. Is it in line in the run game? Is it in the intermediate to deep passing game? What is his, certainly the physicality aspect of it is something that he's prided himself on and would expect that to show up. But I think we need to go see that now that the pads are coming on.
We've seen a guy like Elijah take the next step.
I think a combination of the transition, you're talking Higgins, yeah. I think a transition from wide out to tight end, which is very real, playing the position in college at a different spot. We had a guy, Steve Carlson, when I was in Cleveland, who made a similar transition as a Princeton wide out to a tight end. And so I had some nice stuff from coaching him and that I could kind of share with him on like, hey, here are some things that are probably a little different that you're going to have to, learn to grow on and learn to work on. And he's really taken to that. I think Trey's done a great job of kind of being that, mentor, even at a young age, where he can put his arm around him and say, hey, here are some things that I struggled with my first year or two that I think I could help you with. And I think that combination with his work ethic and his knowledge of the game, really excited about where he's at. But I'm going to say it, and I'd say it to all of them, we still got a long way to go.
With the run game last year, James was a true #1 back, really just using the supplemental pieces when he needed a break. Adding in someone with the size and speed like Trey, how, if at all, does that challenge that philosophy of still using him maybe supplementally, or is that going to be more of like a 1-2 punch, more even with the
I think, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, but like, I won't, like, we'll see. Like, I think, and we tell that to everybody at every position, like, you'll earn your reps. So if he goes out there and it's like, wow, we can't help but play this guy more, he gets more reps. And if he's playing at a high level, but James is just at a level that we haven't, I think a lot of that's going to get figured out here as we go. But certainly really excited about James and where he's at. So he's, and like we said about Trey, I think he's done a great job of bringing the rookie under his wing and kind of teaching him about it. I mean, he went through that process in Pittsburgh in a lot of different ways. So I think he's been a great mentor to him as we've gone through the first, couple months of the offseason.
That was Parrish' transition to left tackle, and does he give you an ability to do some things that you weren't able to do maybe at that position last season?
Yeah, I really don't think about it that way. Certainly excited to see him over there. I don't think it's going to be, and he, again, he would answer this better than I would. I haven't made the transition from right tackle to left tackle in the NFL. I know it's a shock. But he's played there. I think he's very comfortable over there. So it wasn't anything where you got pushback or a little nerves from him. I think he was really ready to make the move if it became the best thing for the team, and he's embraced that challenge. So excited to see him out there.
Describe just the interaction with Kyler day to day from when he got back on the field, spring and now. Like, how much are the two of you kind of, in conversation throughout the season?
Honestly, I wouldn't say the relationship has changed drastically. Like, I thought it was really important when I first got here to build a strong relationship with him, even though he wasn't on the field. I think the big difference now is the conversations are a little more real. It's not as theoretical, which is nice. We have film examples of, hey, what were you thinking? Where were your eyes? You said you were looking at that, but your helmet is clearly over here, or, yeah, that's a bad play call, like, get out of it for me, or find an incompletion. So I think the reality of those conversations has changed, but I wouldn't say the relationship has changed drastically.
Take into account the kickoff changes and two returners and the discussion of the type of body that you want back there. I mean, what have the discussions been like with Jeff Rogers and obviously Monty and JG with roster configuration? Because a lot of those returners are also your side of the ball.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm not going to speak for Jeff. Obviously, as the offensive coordinator, is like, tell me who I got. We're going to use him to the best of our ability. I think that's the nature of the job. I'm not going to stand there and say, hey, I need to have this guy. It's got to be this guy. Like, we got to find the best fit for everything that we want to do as an organization. I'm certainly a part of those conversations, but I would lean on Jeff, and there's a lot of unknowns with the kickoff, and I'm sure he would say that as well and be able to speak on it better than I could. So I think we're going to figure out a lot of that during preseason, and my guess is you're still going to be tweaking that as you go through the year a little bit the first time you do something.
What's the next step for Trey McBride?
I think consistency is, when you play at a high level in this league, the thing we're always going to push you on is, can you do it play in and play out for the entirety of a season, and then the entirety of multiple seasons, and then ultimately your career. I think that's the goal of any great player. And I think he certainly has that desire and that work ethic. So, going to push him towards that, and excited to see him take that journey.
Going back to the film, how heavy was Kyler's input whenever you were adjusting the offense for the offseason?
That's a good question. I would say it's pretty similar to any input I would want from a starting quarterback. Like, I want that guy to feel very involved. Like, it's not like, hey, here's my offense, figure it out. It's like, this is our offense. We got to go out and win games together. What do you like? What do I like? What do we think fits? Why does it fit? Do you understand the way I do? If you don't or I don't, let's get on the same page and make sure we're moving in the same direction. So those conversations have been really productive. I think he does a great job of communicating with me on that and studying the game of football. I think it's something he really enjoys. So you're getting a couple random texts about plays or scheme or other games, and I think that's what makes it fun. When you got a guy who loves it like he does, to interact with him and to go compete with him, it's been a lot of fun to do it.
Was that constant throughout the offseason?
Yeah, I'd say. Now I tell you, and I tell them more than, when we take a break and I have a 2-week-old at home, I'm like, I'm not going to bother you for the next 5 weeks. If you need me, reach out. I think it's important at times to step away and to take a break so you don't burn out. And I think we did that a little bit, but there was still the occasional text on what we're thinking, what we're doing, going into camp, getting excited to come back here and get to work.
How instrumental has Israel been with Kyler since last year, and then also with Desmond coming here in his first year, and also Clayton?
Huge. I mean, Israel does an unbelievable job. I have tremendous amount of respect and confidence in his ability to run that room, coach those guys up. I think the nice thing, kind of the way I talk about Kyler, is like, when I call play, I know Kyler's thinking what I'm thinking. Like, I feel that way with Israel. Like, what I want taught or what I think is going to allow something to be successful, I know he sees it in a very similar way. And when he doesn't, he's going to tell me. And I think that's important to have those conversations and at times disagreements, so that when we go coach something or when we go out to execute it, we're all on the same page in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. But he's done a great job, as you said, with Kyler and last year getting him ready when he wasn't on the field, and then with a new guy in the quarterback room in Dez and getting Clayton up to speed in year 2. I think it's been fun to watch him coach.
I think a part is just staying on top of the technique and all those things as you're running an offense and all that, I guess sometimes you can maybe lose sight a little bit, but being able to stay on top of that.
Absolutely. I think that's the balance of coordinator to position coach. I have at times, I'm going to look at it from a big picture perspective of the scheme, the play, the route. And I think each position coach, and I have a ton of confidence in our guys, you have to remember the details of your position. So at the quarterback room, that's footwork and timing and decision making. At the wideout room, it's releases, top of the route. There's so many little things that go into playing each position. And I'm going to pay attention to them, but by nature of the role, I may not be able to do it with the same level of detail that a position coach does. And I got to have faith in that guy to do it the right way and to stay on top of it throughout the course of the offseason, training camp, and into the season so that we're developing and improving our players constantly.
How do you control like the half speed, 3/4 speed, full speed stuff today with the pads on, the crowd out there? How do you manage that?
It's always a little bit harder the first day of pads. I think you have to get out in front of it. I think one of the things we said to our guys today is, look, it's full pads, it's competitive, but we're still all on the same team. And we have to keep that in mind. Anything that happens on defense negatively ultimately hurts us as an offense and us as a team. So I think you got to remind guys of that. I think at the end of the day, they know it and they're aware of it, but it's always a little bit hard. It's like going against the same guy day in and day out. It gets a little chippy, and I think that's what makes camp fun. But you also got to strike a balance there and know when to tone it down and back off. And I think our guys have found that. And then certainly it's our job as coaches to keep it there.